All right, we're good to go.
Okay. Well, to start with, as you know, we have to be reminded that of our duty under the State Ethics and Government Act to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflict, and are instructed to refrain from participating in any matter that's before this committee with respect to any which there is a conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict. So if that exists now, or if it becomes apparent during the meeting that there's a conflict, if you would just please let me know. I do welcome everyone to our meeting, and I'm, for the sake of time, and I think there's been a whole lot of introductions going on at all the other meetings. So all I ask is if those of you that are new to the Issues Committee, I do not believe we have any new State Bar counselors that are members of this committee. Let me know if I'm wrong. But I do think we have a few new members to this committee. Would you please identify yourself and just tell us who you are and where you're from? Please, don't be shy. Somebody start.
I'll start. I'm Steve Robertson. I'm a counselor from Greensboro, and I'm new to the Issues Committee.
Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Michael Lovejoy. I'm from Henderson County, North Carolina. I'm new to the Issues Committee as well.
You go by Michael or Mike?
Michael.
Michael. Okay. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
I'm Charles Roundtree from Tarboro. I'm new to the Issues Committee.
Hi, Charles. Welcome.
Kevin Kiernan from
I'm also a
Kenansville.
newbie. This is Gordon Brown.
Okay. Go ahead, Gordon.
Yeah, Gordon Brown from Chapel Hill. It's my first year on the committee.
All right. Welcome, Gordon. All right, Kevin.
Kevin Kiernan from Kenansville, new to the Issues Committee.
Okay. Welcome. Anybody else? We got all the new members. Any new staff members, Alice, that need to be that you would like to introduce?
Rob Weston is on this. He's our newest member of the Office of Counsel. I think he's having the pleasure of being introduced multiple times this week. So,
Feeling very important, which he is.
yes, he is, and we're pleased to have him. He started in November, so he's been doing all of his work remotely, and he's doing an amazing job, even though starting that way. So, Rob,
thanks for the introduction, Alice.
For the new members, Alice is a staff member that's a member of this committee and could not do our work without her. So thank you, Alice. I'm sure that a lot of you new and old members wonder a little bit about the history of this committee and wonder why we have this Issues Committee. Well, frankly, it's because some of our past State Bar presidents have had some issues. Some have had more issues than other. For example, Gray Wilson had a lot of issues, and I can say that and pick on him because he's not in this meeting. But actually, this committee has done a lot of good work in the past, and we have a lot of good work to do going forward. But as a reminder, we always have to ask ourselves this, is the issue before us, does it fall in our lane? Meaning, does it relate to the regulation of the practice of law, which serves to protect the public, and which also serves to assist lawyers to be better lawyers, which in then turns protects the public. So that's always the first question we have to ask ourselves when we have any issue that comes before this committee. So the great news about this committee is we have a lot of diversity in our issues. So we get to talk about a lot of different things. It never gets boring, that's for sure. So having said that, we will now proceed with our agenda, and you were sent the minutes before to review for the October 21st meeting. And so I would entertain a motion to adopt those minutes if someone so move. Okay.
I would note the misspelling of Peter Bolus. I believe that should be.
That would not have been me.
That was done intentionally by Alice, I think, to undermine me.
I don't normally read minutes that carefully, but these ones were
quite impressed.
Short.
Did I leave Peter out? No, Bolas. I misspell you. Sorry.
And that amendment to the minutes.
Bolak. I got that.
I think we do have a motion and a second. So is any discussion about the minutes? Any other changes? Okay. All those in favor? You got your poll in front of you. Vote, please.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. All right, going to the first item on the agenda, the report of the subcommittee on compensation of court-appointed defense counsel. This subcommittee was appointed to study what, if any, actions the state bar should take to support the fair compensation of lawyers who are appointed to represent indigent criminal defendants. The subcommittee decided to conduct a survey on whether excessive caseloads and low compensation rates are impacting the competent representation of defendants by private defense counsel. So we have our own Alan Cobb, who is the chair of this committee. Alan, are you with us? And if so, can you please give the report from your committee? Do we have Alan?
I don't see Alan in here yet. Maybe we'll displace this agenda item and come back if he joins us.
Okay, just let me know and I'll try to look as well. All right, we'll move on to the next item, which is the report of the subcommittee to study proposed regulatory change in other jurisdictions. And this committee is chaired by Mark Enriquez. Mark, are you with us?
I am here. Thank you, Marcy.
Hey.
Great to see everybody virtually again today. We had a really interesting meeting of the Regulatory Change Committee in November. We heard from Lucy Rica, who's the executive director of the Utah Office of Legal Services Innovation. I think it's interesting that they have a full-time person in charge of legal service innovation. And what she talked to us about was the idea of a regulatory sandbox. You may have read some articles about it or heard about it. I think our subcommittee was really interested in learning what is a regulatory sandbox, how does it work, is it something we would want to consider for North Carolina? My takeaways, and she talked quite a bit about the structure. There was an interesting PowerPoint. Again, you can review the minutes or talk to any of us on there. I think my key takeaways were this really was a creature originally of the Utah Supreme Court, as opposed to the bar. The court said, we want to do something, took the initiative and said, we're going to create this innovation board. We're going to set up the sandbox, and it really created the rules which they are implementing. So that's an interesting piece, because the court also basically said we're going to grant exceptions to the rules for people in the sandbox. So people could come in and make proposals to say, hey, we want non-lawyer ownership of a firm, or we want to be exempted from some of the restrictions on multi-state practice, or we want to be able to make referrals differently than provided in the rules. And if those get approved, and I think they've had a number approved, I think it was over 30 projects that have been approved, they are allowed to move forward. And then there's basically monitoring to say, are consumers being harmed as a result? Are people getting bad information? So I think it's interesting. I think it's a new program. I think the jury is out in terms of the actual scope of impact, but I thought it was creative and very interesting for us to learn about that. And there were a lot of good questions from members of the subcommittee posed about how it was implemented, how long it's going to last and take place. So that's what we did in November. We are planning, our next session is really going to focus on paraprofessionals. As you know, many states have decided to have some type of limited license paraprofessional, limited license technician, or other terminology. The idea is, are there things that someone can do without being a lawyer? Some limit it to certain areas like domestic law, criminal law, housing law. So we're going to learn more about what that program looks like and think about whether that is something that we might implement in North Carolina, particularly given our robust paralegal certification program. So that's going to be coming up, I think, in February, but we're moving ahead. I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Mark? Okay. All right, Mark, thank you so much, you and your committee, for all your hard work. All right, so do we have Alan, Peter, or not?
No, he still has not joined us yet.
Okay, we'll just go to the next issue. So the next item on the agenda is the report of the Subcommittee on Diversity and Inclusion. By way of history, in June, the LAP board sent a memorandum to the officers of the State Bar asking us to consider ways the bar might take a leadership role in race issues and within the profession. So at the October 21st, 2020 meeting of the Issues Committee, it was determined that a subcommittee on diversity and inclusion would be appointed to study the suggestions of the LAP board as well as other initiatives that the committee thought might be relevant, and to make recommendations for full action to this full Issues Committee. Todd Brown is the chair of the subcommittee, and Leonore Hodge is the staff person on that subcommittee. And I believe I saw Todd.
Yes.
Todd, can you please? And I attended. That was your first meeting, right? Yesterday.
Yes. Yes.
I attended that, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I felt that it was well run, Todd, and I felt like everybody felt that they had a free reign to talk and to share ideas. So I thought it was a good first meeting. But if you would please report on that, please.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I also agree that it was a robust and good meeting. The members of the subcommittee are in your materials, and we had a lot of folks also attend yesterday. I mean, I think the establishment of this committee is very timely, very important, given all of the racial equity and social justice upheaval that we had in 2020. And it's something that the bar has been looking at for a long time. And I think it's time to take a greater look in earnest, and that's what we intend to do. We had our very first meeting yesterday, and I sort of styled it as, I guess, an organizational and directional meeting. We're trying to get our sea legs to understand exactly what issues we want to study. As Marcy mentioned, the officers have responded to the LAP board's memorandum about this issue and set out some areas of which they are more than willing to study, and we have some free reign to study other issues as well. So the first meeting was sort of, just to get a general understanding of folks' views on this issue. As a lot of you know, and as I know, a lot of this has to do with race and gender and related issues, and sometimes those discussions can be difficult. But I was very, very pleased that we had a very candid and very honest discussion yesterday. And I think a lot of the folks on this call and on our subcommittee felt the same way. So I was very encouraged. Leonore and I talked afterwards, and we're very, very pleased at the direction in which we may be headed. A couple of things that we sort of built some consensus around, because one of the things we wanted to do was sort of get an idea as to what we may be able to agree on in terms of study areas as we put together a longer menu of items that we will consider for our next meeting. I know we're going to be meeting with the president at some point to discuss this issue, but we have, as of yesterday, sort of a list of items that we want to look at initially, and we're putting together other items on that list as well, based on comments we received during the meeting, and also some comments we received after the meeting. Folks were kind enough to send us some emails with some very thoughtful suggestions, and we're going to put those on the menu of issues. And then the plan is to go back to the subcommittee with a menu of items that, for our consideration, we will then sort of prioritize what we ought to study, what we ought not to study, keeping in mind, as I said yesterday, that we are somewhat constrained by the fact that we are a regulatory body with a specific mission, and so we will proceed with that in mind. I would certainly prefer to have some broader parameters, like, for example, the Bar Association does, or like a lot of law firms do, but that's not where we are. So we will abide by the regulatory parameters that we have. I just wanted to give folks just a couple of bullet points about what the things that we have, I think, built some consensus around in terms of studying. And ultimately, as you all know, our charge is to study these areas and then to make recommendations to the Issues Committee for further study or for further direction to us. And so that is our plan, is to study these issues, come up with some recommendations, and then make those to the Issues Committee in the fullness of time. A couple of things that we sort of think are at the top of the list perhaps might be the actual establishment of a diversity and inclusion committee, or some sort of staff position, to sort of take a look at all of these issues at the bar leadership level, council level, staff levels, membership levels. I think there's some consensus around that. Consensus around taking a look at how we go about better promoting diversity and inclusion in our membership, but particularly at the district bar level. I think it's a given that some of our district bars are more diverse than others. And so we have perhaps a lot of education to do there, a lot of communication to do there, and we're going to figure out how best to get the message out of the importance of diversity and inclusion, not only to the legal profession, but to all of us. And the other thing we talked about was, finding methods and ways of being champions for minority lawyers and our minority bar counselors to rise to leadership positions on the council and in the bar. I mean, my personal view is it's great to be involved, but I'd much rather have folks get involved and become leaders in their various organizations. And so that's what we're going to take a look at. Another thing we will look at with the wise counsel of the Office of General Counsel and the officers and anyone who wants to give us good advice, we're going to look at whether we can proceed with the collection of some demographic data, especially on the race and gender fronts, to see whether or not that informs our discussions and our communications at the district bar level, and also informs what we do with respect to the task that we might have a diversity committee ultimately taking a look at, and also the recommendations that we will make to the council. So there's a fair bit of interest, I would say, in seeing whether or not we can collect some demographic data to see where we have been, where we are, where we may be going. And I think it's fair to say that collecting it historically will probably be a lot more challenging, because I believe it's true that the state bar has not historically kept such demographic data. And there are certainly pros and cons, landmines particularly that you want to avoid in that area. But we will take a look at that, I believe, if the committee so chooses. And we're also going to look at what resources may be of assistance to us as we proceed. I don't believe we're writing on a clean slate here necessarily. There are other jurisdictions that have done precisely what we are starting to do. And they have made, I can think of one right out of the box, is the Florida bar. 10 years ago, they were exactly where we are now. And they ultimately came up with 12 recommendations to what is the equivalent of our issues committee or council maybe. So we've got some resources, but we also want to talk about whether we need, for lack of a better phrase, some experts in this diversity and inclusion area to come and chat with us and provide some education, similar to what some of the other committees do in terms of what other jurisdictions are doing and what we might want to take a look at to make better and more accretive recommendations ultimately. So that's a long way of saying we had a very good meeting yesterday, in my view. I believe we are off to a good start. We understand that there's a lot of work to be done, and Leonore and I have committed to doing the hard work to try to achieve the results that the Issues Committee wants us to achieve. So I don't know whether anyone else has anything that they want to add. Like, as I said, there were lots of folks at the meeting. Leonore, I saw you. I don't know if there's anything you want to add as well, but that is the report, Marcy, on what we did yesterday and what we did afterwards, and some of what we intend to do going forward. So that's my report.
Thank you, Todd. Leonore, did you want to say something?
I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Comments, questions? If you have any ideas or suggestions, certainly get those to Todd and Leonore.
Yes, we welcome them. Absolutely.
This is the beginning.
Right. That's right.
We thank you. Todd and your committee, and Leonore for your diligence. This is a tough topic. Thank you.
Welcome.
Proud of
Thank
your
you.
work. So do we have Alex? Is it Nicely? Is he on?
Yeah, it's Nicely. I'm here.
Hey, I hate to put you on the spot, but Alan Cobb apparently is not on this call. And could you give us a brief report on the Subcommittee on Compensation of Court-Appointed Defense Counsel?
Sure.
Okay, well, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Alex Nicely. I'm a deputy counsel with the Office of Counsel, and I've been staffing that committee. As you already mentioned, the last quarter we decided to conduct a survey regarding the effect of caseloads and compensation on the representation of indigent clients with private appointed counsel. After that meeting, the prior quarter, I conducted a draft survey with proposed questions using Microsoft Forms. And then we met at our most recent subcommittee meeting. We discussed the survey questions, and the members suggested changes and additions to the survey questions that I had already. I also asked for written input from the committee members after our meeting, and also from members of IDS to see if they had any ideas for additional questions. And I'm still waiting on some responses from subcommittee members and from IDS. After we can all come to an agreement on the survey questions, the plan is to then get some input from the School of Government, because obviously they do a lot of surveys and they know what they're doing with these types of issues. And then to send it out to private appointed counsel, both past and present, and then to also create a new survey with some of the same ideas, but to send it to judges to get their opinions on the same subject matter.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Alex. Anybody have any questions for Alex or any comments? Thank you, Alex. We appreciate you stepping in. So the last, I believe it's the last agenda item, is discussing promoting the expansion of secure leave. So this is a new issue, a new topic, and we at this time do not have a committee appointed to look into this issue. I do know that this issue is something that Mel Wright, are you with us, Mel? Still with us? No.
Mel is with us. I'm going to try to get him to unmute, but I think he was in his car. Let's see.
Mel is, of course, the Executive Director of the Chief Justice's Commission on Professionalism.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
There he is. Hey.
Okay. Hey.
Hope you're going somewhere fun.
No, I'm not.
Also, be safe talking to us. But...
I've pulled over. My car is stopped now. I'm not driving.
Okay. So I think the issue, just in a nutshell, and Emil, you can add to this, is there's been some requests by lawyers to be able to take less than 5 days secure leave, and there are others have talked about an additional week where they can use for CLE or to serve on boards or commissions. And I think it's been a while maybe since the secured leave has been reviewed, and you've got some materials on this issue in your packet for today. And I believe this is something that the commission, I don't know, Mel, are you guys sort of the ones that the lead on this issue?
Well, I think we were back when it was adopted, and
right.
And Alice has asked me if I would join with you going forward with this, and I certainly would like to do that. I think it has some potential of being an important amendment, if you will, to our existing secured leave policy, and some things that need to be discussed and expanded upon. So I feel sure that the commission will be supportive of that. We're getting a new chair right now, as you know, with Chief Justice Newby, and we're going to have some new people coming on the commission. But I feel confident in telling you that we'll be glad to join with the state bar in this effort, because there's some things that we need to do to assist lawyers with this secured leave policy, I believe.
Thank you. Now, Alice, I know that you spoke with the chief of staff, I think, for Chief Justice Newby on this issue. And can you fill us in so we can kind of figure out where the state bar, might fit into this?
Yeah, well, so let me maybe back up a little bit, Marcy. The question about secured leave was really coming from some of the membership. And I believe they were sending their request to Darren, and Darren might want to chime in here as well. We've gotten requests to increase the number of weeks of secured leave that are available to trial lawyers, and to also see if those periods can be taken in less than 1 week increments, which is apparently a real problem for people that really use a lot of this secured leave to catch up on their office practice and the business matters that have to be attended to in addition to the representation of clients. And Darren may actually have some more to say on the people who have approached him about that issue. I haven't communicated with the Chief Justice directly, but I have been in communications with his Chief of Staff. And there's just a lot on his plate right now, as you can imagine. And I did tell her that we were considering this and would love to have some sense from the chief, whether this is something that, would fall on welcome ears or deaf ears. I have not gotten a response to that inquiry, but I think Mel is here, and Mel's communications are going to be directly with the chief once he, steps in and starts chairing the commission. And so I'm encouraged by what Mel has said, that this is not a blind alley and is, worth our study. It may be something where we want to talk to the Bar Association folks and the advocates for justice, and there be some kind of joint recommendation to the commission. Mel, I don't know your thoughts on that. That would be helpful if you think that would be a wise course for us to take.
Yeah, I think the more support we have for it, the better we'll be. We want to be sure that we hear from all sides of the bar, people that have differing practices that maybe feel that the secured leave is not beneficial to them. We want to find out why and amend it in such a way that everybody is on board with this.
Marcy, do you think that it would be worthwhile to have a subcommittee of the issues committee formed just to study this and maybe, bring in some folks like we often do that are outside of the State Bar Council, but to assist?
I think, and Alice, tell me if I'm wrong here, that we were waiting to get a response from the Chief Justice on this issue before we actually spent the time, effort, and resources to.
Well, either that or I think Mel's indication that this would be a welcome study. I think that's sufficient, Marcy, for us to get underway.
Okay, I guess I was mistaken. I thought it was something that the commission was doing and we were going to be supporting the commission. So now you're saying that we would be the ones taking the lead on this. Is that what you're saying?
That's right, Mel, isn't it? You guys,
yes.
You aren't independently looking into this.
No, we were approached about it and basically let everybody know that we'd be glad to join in, and I'll be glad to approach the Chief Justice about it when the dust settles a little bit for him.
And again, if I'm wrong, tell me, but I thought the idea was to appoint a committee to see if this is something that would be, that the chief would be open to. I thought that's what we had decided, as its officers, but if I'm wrong on that, we can go ahead and appoint a subcommittee. I'm fine with that.
I think at the time, Alice hadn't even reached Mel. And so she's thinking, I guess the thought is that he'll be open to us studying it anyway, or at least starting down the path. We can at least, you don't have to do it right now, but you've got between now and the next meeting to kind of form a subcommittee, and they can at least start meeting. And if we have to call it off, we call it off. But
Okay, that's fine. And what I'd ask is that anybody on the committee that's interested in serving on the subcommittee, if you will email me and Alice and let us know. I'd love to have you.
and Mel, if you have, some thoughts about who would be good folks,
That's true.
so we can gather the stakeholders.
I'll be glad to do that.
I assume that you'll serve with us, right, Mel?
I will. I certainly will.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions about the secured leave issue? And if you don't volunteer, we're going to have to appoint you. So pretty please. Okay. All right. I believe that is all that's on the formal agenda. Are there any other? Does anybody else have any issues that you can just discuss with us? All right. Otherwise, is there a motion for us to adjourn? Just somebody say yes. Okay, Todd.
Move to
All right.
adjourn.
Is there a second? Mark. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. All right. Everybody have a great